Picture this. A massive glowing blue holographic number one, $122 billion, just sort of floating like a ghost over a burning oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz.
Wow. Yeah, that is quite the image.
Right. The water is this like blood orange color at dusk reflecting the fire, and thick smoke is just drifting across the entire horizon. And that is the exact split-screen reality of human history that we are looking at today.
It really is a striking visual, and it just perfectly captures the paradox we're living in right now. I mean, we have a physical world that is literally on fire, and sitting right on top of it is this impossible, record-shattering accumulation of digital capital.
Exactly. And so welcome to today's Deep Dives. We are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources for you today. We've got the Koda Daily Intelligence Brief, some internal editorial directions, and these highly detailed visual production scripts, all dated today, April 2, 2026.
It's just a wild 24-hour period to look at.
It really is. Our mission today is to explore this specific day where the contrasts are just staggering. Yeah. You have a world that is, simultaneously accelerating into this hyper-advanced future and just dragging itself right back into the mud.
Yeah, dragging is the right word.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with that massive holographic number, $122 billion. Because OpenAI just closed the largest capital raise in technology history.
The sheer scale of that number is, well, it's difficult to even process. To put it in perspective, that single funding round is larger than the entire GDP of, many sovereign nations.
Which is insane.
Right. But what's more important is the intent behind it. Because this isn't just operating capital, it's a war chest. It is specifically earmarked to fuel their next generation of advanced AI systems, primarily that highly anticipated GPT 5.5 release.
Right, which everyone is expecting by mid-2026. But the timing of this announcement is what really stands out to me, because they dropped this $122 billion financial bomb, and on the exact same day, they are forcing this massive migration for developers.
Yeah, that is the kicker.
According to the sources, GPT-4o, which is the model that basically defined the last era of this tech, is being fully retired tomorrow, April 3.
Which is just a brutal timeline for the global developer ecosystem, because when we talk about a model being retired, we're really talking about the closing of endpoints.
Explain what an endpoint is, just for anyone listening who might not be building software every day.
Sure. An endpoint is basically the digital doorway that developers use to connect their own apps to OpenAI's brain. So if OpenAI shuts that door, any app relying on it just instantly breaks.
Oh, wow. So if you're a startup and your entire product relies on GPT-4o, you are literally waking up in a cold sweat today.
Exactly. You have to migrate your entire system to the new GPT 5.4 or, to those new mini and nano variants they just launched back in March.
And that feels less like an upgrade and more like a total flex of infrastructural power.
Oh, it is entirely a power play. They're effectively telling the market, hey, the era of GPT-4 is over, the baseline has moved, keep up or get left behind. And when you combine that forced migration with a $122 billion war chest, you start to see this very deliberate strategy to just control the industry's entire timeline.
Which brings me to a question I really want to challenge you on. Because if we look at the prediction markets reacting right now, Manifold has Gemma 4 sitting at a 98.8% probability for an April release.
Yeah, that's practically a sure thing.
Right. Minimax M3 is at 65%, Kimi K3 at 63%, and Claude Mathos is the most likely single release from Anthropic this month. So there's this absolute avalanche of competing models drop.
A total avalanche, yeah.
So if OpenAI already has all this money, how does $122 billion actually stop competitors? Is this massive raise about funding genuine technological breakthroughs, or is it just brute force financial dominance designed to terrify the market into, rushing their own April drops?
What's fascinating here is that the financial dominance itself has basically become the technological breakthrough.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, this isn't just about paying for server farms anymore. What we're witnessing is the crystallization of AI as the new global reserve currency.
Okay, let's actually explore that metaphor because it sounds profound, but how does AI act as a currency? I mean, we aren't paying for groceries with lines of code.
No, not directly, obviously. But think about how the gold standard used to work. Nations stockpiled gold because it was the base layer of value that dictated all global economics, right?
Right.
Today, corporations and nation states are stockpiling compute and model weights. When OpenAI secures $122 billion, they establish this massive gravitational pull. They corner the market on top-tier engineering talent. They monopolize the supply chain for advanced
And they
chips.
set the baseline expectations for investors, I bet.
Exactly. It means a competitor doesn't just have to build a smarter AI anymore. They have to somehow convince investors to back them against an entity that has sovereign wealth levels of cash.
So it's basically an impossible economic moat. And that directly ties into the pressure from the open source community, right?
Yeah.
The sources mention a new Hugging Face report tracking what they are calling the open source spring of 2026.
Yes, and this is crucial context for why OpenAI needs so much money right now. Because the landscape has completely transformed since early 2025. It's all due to the proliferation of open weight models from labs like Alibaba, DeepSeek, and Meta.
And for you listening, when we say open weight, it essentially means the underlying architecture of the AI, its internal decision-making parameters, is just available for anyone to download, tinker with, and run on their own hardware.
Right, it turns AI development from this, corporate monopoly locked in a vault into a grassroots, decentralized movement.
And that grassroots movement moves incredibly fast.
Exactly the right way to look at it. OpenAI's war chest is a direct response to that open source pressure. They have to prove that closed proprietary models locked behind a paywall can still outrun a highly mobilized global open source community.
And the only way to maintain that lead is with overwhelming financial artillery.
Precisely.
But there is a massive blind spot in this $122 billion digital dream. Because GPT-5 doesn't run on air. It runs on electricity, on massive industrial cooling systems, and on physical supply chains.
Yeah, that's the harsh reality check.
Right. And while OpenAI is securing infinite digital capital, the physical world supporting it is incredibly fragile. Which brings us right back to that striking split-screen image we started with. The burning oil tanker in the Middle East.
The contrast is just jarring, because digital capital is infinitely scalable, frictionless, borderless, but the physical world is stubbornly bound by geography, by steel, by oil. And right now, the physical geography that powers the global economy is under immense strain.
Let's lay out the facts from the intelligence brief regarding what actually happened on the ground today. So we are looking at a major military escalation in the Middle East. U.S. and Israeli forces struck two piers in the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, Iran and Hezbollah launched a coordinated double strike on central Israel, which injured at least 4 people and damaged a critical water network in Bnei Brak, with debris falling across the Tel Aviv area.
And we also have to factor in the political layer of this escalation. President Trump delivered a national address today declaring that core strategic objectives regarding Iran are nearing completion. He pledged to finish the job, which really introduces a distinct shift toward a defined endgame in the region.
And I want to be very clear for you listening. We are strictly reporting the facts laid out in our intelligence brief here. We are not analyzing the ideology behind the politics or the military actions. We're staying totally neutral on that. But what we absolutely must examine is the economic shockwave this triggered today. Because a strike in the Strait of Hormuz isn't just a regional news story.
No, not at all. It's a direct hit on the global central nervous system. The Strait of Hormuz is basically the quintessential geographic choke point. You have roughly 20% of the world's entire oil consumption passing through a waterway that is only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point.
That is terrifyingly narrow.
It is. So when 2 piers are struck in that specific location, the market reaction is instantaneous and severe. Oil spiked over 6% today, and Asian markets took heavy losses.
Yeah, the numbers in the brief are stark. Nikkei down 2.4%, Kospi down 4.5%. But I want to look at the human reality of those numbers. How does a single missile strike thousands of miles away fundamentally alter daily life?
It hits the wallet immediately.
Exactly. We have reports of truckers and bus drivers in Paris staging a massive go slow demonstration, blocking key roadways during the peak tourism season. Why? Because the cost of the fuel they need to do their jobs roughly doubled overnight.
Wow.
Over in South Korea, there is a reported 2.2% annual spike in consumer inflation driven directly by these fuel costs.
This is exactly where we see the domino effect of that physical fragility. When a pier burns in the Persian Gulf, shipping companies immediately panic. Insurance premiums for oil tankers skyrocket. Some ships just reroute entirely, taking the long way around Africa.
Which adds, weeks to transit times?
Weeks, yeah. And that delay and costs increase cascades down the supply chain until it instantly halves the profit margin of a truck driver in France and raises the price of groceries for a family in Seoul. The entire physical economy is held hostage by these narrow, vulnerable corridors.
It is such a profound irony. I mean, humanity is building these limitless, borderless digital minds, yet the very power required to run the servers, the global economy required to manufacture the chips, is completely at the mercy of a few miles of volatile water in the Middle East.
Which is why the institutional response to this specific escalation is incredibly telling. The intelligence brief notes a major development today. The International Energy Agency, the IMF, and the World Bank have officially formed a joint trilateral Iran crisis group.
Wait, the IEA, the IMF, and the World Bank teaming up. That sounds less like a standard task force and more like pulling the fire alarm for the global economy.
It really signals a fundamental shift in their outlook. If we connect this to the bigger picture, major global institutions forming a joint crisis group means they view this economic disruption as systemic rather than temporary.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, they are not treating this as a localized conflict where the markets will just bounce back to normal next quarter. They are preparing for a long-term rewiring of global energy economics.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. How do these two realities intersect? On one hand, the traditional physical economy is grappling with these massive supply chain shocks. Energy is expensive, transit is vulnerable, the old world is shaking. But on the other hand, the AI ecosystem is just independently rushing forward.
Right, laying down permanent infrastructure as if the physical world isn't burning at all.
Exactly. It's because the AI industry is essentially building its own plumbing, parallel to the traditional economy. And the developments in today's sources show a massive industry-wide shift from the experimental laboratory phase to the permanent deployment phase.
Let's look at the hardware side of that plumbing first, because China is making a huge pivot. Huawei just launched the 950 PR AI chip.
Okay, and what's special about that one?
Well, it's priced at 70,000 yuan for the high-performance variant, which is highly competitive. But the key detail in the brief is that this chip is explicitly optimized for fast inference, not training. And instantly, giants like ByteDance and Alibaba placed massive orders for it.
Inference, not training. Let's
Yeah.
break that down. That distinction is critical for understanding where the technology is right now.
Think of training an AI like sending it to university. It takes massive data centers, months of time, and entirely different, highly specialized types of computing power just to teach the model how to think. It's incredibly expensive and resource intensive.
Right, and inference.
Inference is the AI out in the workforce. It's the model actually doing the job, answering your prompt, generating a video, analyzing a spreadsheet.
So Huawei flooding the market with cheap inference chips means China's tech ecosystem is signaling that the university phase is over. They're saying, hey, we have the models, now we're deploying them at scale to everyday users.
Exactly. And the West is moving in the exact same direction. The brief mentions that Meta has now shipped 4 generations of its custom MTIA chips. That's the Meta Training and Inference Accelerator. In just 2 years.
Wow, 4 generations in 2 years.
Yeah, they are building the silicon required to handle generative AI workloads for billions of daily active users. The underlying foundation of this tech is hardening into permanent infrastructure.
And it's hardening at the diplomatic level, too. Just look at the international agreements happening today. Anthropic, which is obviously one of the biggest AI labs in the world, just signed an official memorandum of understanding with the Australian government regarding AI safety and research.
Which is a huge deal.
It is. They are establishing a formal framework for bilateral cooperation on responsible AI deployment.
And that perfectly encapsulates the split-screen nature of today's deep dive. You have the traditional geopolitical order fighting kinetic wars over 20th century resources like oil, while the emerging technopolitical order is calmly negotiating diplomatic treaties to define the boundaries of 21st century intelligence.
It's literally like we are living in 2 different centuries simultaneously. And while governments negotiate those high-level frameworks, the tools for the average person are becoming incredibly accessible. There is a new consumer platform launching today called Architect.new.
Oh, yeah.
And the visual description we have from the production scripts is just fascinating. It's a drag-and-drop builder for AI agents.
This is where the abstraction layer reaches the end user. Tell us how the interface works.
So it's described as this dark, sleek glass canvas. And you don't write any code at all. You literally just pull visual nodes around the screen. You drag an emerald green diamond into the center to define the agent goal. Say you wanted to manage your small business inventory.
Okay, simple enough.
Right. Then you drag a purple cylinder over to give it memory, so it remembers past supplier negotiations. You drag another node to give it tool access, linking it to your email and accounting software. And then you just click a pink export button, and boom, you have a fully working, autonomous digital employee. And the script emphasizes zero infrastructure required.
Zero infrastructure required might be the most powerful phrase in this entire briefing. Up until very recently, building an autonomous agent meant you needed a whole team of developers.
Oh, yeah.
You had to know how to provision a server, which means renting and configuring the actual computing power. You had to set up databases, manage security, write complex API integrations just to get different software programs to talk to each other.
But Architect.new strips all of that away. It's like giving everyone a set of visual Legos for building autonomous workers. You don't need to be an engineer anymore. You just need to be a manager. You just need to know what you want the digital worker to achieve.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can really see the entire technological stack solidifying in a single day. At the very top, OpenAI secures $122 billion to build the ultimate foundational brains.
Right.
In the middle, Huawei and Meta deploy the custom silicon to ensure those brains can run cheaply and instantly. And then at the user level, platforms like Architect.new give ordinary people the ability to turn that intelligence into a personalized army of digital workers in 5 minutes. The technology has fully graduated from the lab to everyday execution.
Which brings us to the most important question. What does this all mean for you, the person listening to this right now? Because you are living your life at the exact intersection of these two realities. You are relying on a fragile, highly volatile physical supply chain for your basic needs, for the fuel in your car, the food in your grocery store, the physical shipping of the goods you buy.
Exactly.
And at the exact same time, you are having to adapt to a hyper-automated digital economy that is accelerating at a pace no human can naturally match.
It creates a tension that we're really going to have to resolve.
Yeah.
We're watching digital intelligence become essentially free, abundant, and universally accessible, funded by these historic war chests and deployed on cheap inference chips. But at the exact same moment, physical energy, the electricity required to actually power all of this, is becoming increasingly scarce, volatile, and prohibitively expensive due to systemic, unresolvable geopolitical conflicts.
It's a total collision course.
It really is. And it leaves us with this uncomfortable but fascinating concept to consider going forward. If this trajectory holds, what happens if the future economy simply consists of brilliant, godlike AI minds trapped inside a physical world that is simply too broken and too expensive to power them?
God-like digital minds starving for electricity in a broken physical world. It really makes you look at that image from the beginning of our deep dive in a completely different light. $122 billion in glowing, limitless digital potential. Well, floating like a ghost over a burning physical oil tanker. It's a lot to process, and it definitely changes how you look at both the news and the technology in your pocket. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive into the sources with us today. We will see you next time.